Hello, guys. Today we're talking about the futures, advantage, and disadvantage of a socialist economy. In my last video, I talked about the socialist economy, the capitalist economy, and the mixed economy. So today we'll be dwelling more on the futures, the advantages, and the disadvantages of a socialist economy. If you know you have not watched the video of the economic system, you can go to the YouTube channel and watch the video of the economic system and see the way I define the socialist economy, the capitalist economy, and the mixed economy. Okay, in my last video, we talked about the socialist economy. Firstly, the socialist economy is an economic system whereby the means of production and distribution are owned, managed, and controlled by the government. That is to say that price in the socialist economy is not determined by private individuals. It's not determined by the forces of demand and supply, but rather it is determined by what? The state. So for those that are writing economics or government, because this topic is for both economists and government. Now you're writing why they might ask you, write short notes on the following: the futures of a socialist economy, the advantages of a socialist economy, the disadvantages of a what? Socialist economy. That is why you are here. And the futures of the socialist economy is on the board. Okay. Number one is, what is the future of the socialist economy? Number one is, in a socialist economy, there is a state ownership of the means of production. And I said it in my last video when I was defining the socialist economy. The means of production and distribution are owned and controlled by either the government or what? The state. So one feature of a socialist economy is that what? There is state ownership of the means of production, and rather the state ownership of the means of production and distribution, of course. And those of the writing objective exam, they may ask you, in which economic system is there state ownership of the means of production? The answer is what? The socialist what? Economy. The socialist what? Economy. So when you are asked in an exam, in which economic system ownership of the means of production and distribution is from the state, it's from the government, the answer is what? The socialist economy. Number two says that it reduces income inequality. That's to say that in a socialist economy tends to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, which is also an advantage of a socialist economy. So it reduces inequality, income inequality between the rich and what? The poor. So when you're asking an exam, an economic system that reduces income inequality bridges the gap between the rich and the poor. It bridges the gap between the rich and the poor. The answer is what? The socialist what? Economy. So number three is that price is controlled by the state or government. That means price of goods and services. In a socialist economy, the prices of goods and services is not controlled by the forces of demand and supply. It is not controlled by the individuals, but rather it is controlled by what? The state. So when you're asking an exam, who controls the price in the socialist economy? The answer is what? The state. The state. Okay, if you're an exam and you don't see the state, the other answer is the government. Because another name for the state is what? The government. So the next one is, there is little or no consumer sovereignty. So in a socialist economy, there is no consumer sovereignty. There is no consumer freedom. But rather, in a capitalist economy, there is consumer freedom. So when you're asking an exam, this is an objective exam, objective question, sorry. So when you're asking an exam, in which economic system there is little or no consumer sovereignty? There is little or no consumer sovereignty. That means consumers are not sovereign. Consumers do not determine the price of goods and services. Consumers are not free. There is no consumer freedom. That is to say that in a socialist economy, there is no consumer what? Freedom. So when you're asking an exam, in which economic system there is no consumer freedom? The answer is what? A socialist what? Economy. So we can read them again so that it can be part of us. The first one is, there is state ownership of the means of production. Supposed to be means of production. Then the second one is, It reduces income inequality. Then the next one is price is controlled by the state or government. So the next one is there is little or no consumer sovereignty. So what are the advantages of a socialist economy? Another name for the advantage is called the merits. What are the merits of this socialist economy? Of course, anything that has an advantage, we have a disadvantage. Anything that has a merit, we have what? The demerit. So what are the advantages of a socialist economy? Number one, it encourages cooperation instead of competition. So in a socialist economy, there is no competition, but rather cooperation. Cooperation. How to make the economy better with cooperation. Where is there cooperation? Because the price is not determined by private individuals. The price is not determined by the forces of demand or somebody, but rather the price is determined by what? The central government, or it is determined by what? By the state or what? Government. So when you're asking them, in which economic system there is cooperation rather than competition? Or when you're not asking why 2026, they ask you, which among the following is an advantage? Or write one of the following. Write one advantage of a socialist economy. Number one you're supposed to write is what? It encourages cooperation instead of what? Competition. Number two. This number two is a jam question. I remember the year, I've forgotten the year jam asked that question. They said, which economic system bridges the gap between the rich and the poor? The answer is what? A socialist what? Economy. So it's also an advantage of a socialist economy. So it bridges the gap, the income gap between the rich and what? The poor. The next one, it encourages production based on needs, not profits. Not profit. That is to say that in a socialist economy, it deals more on the need of the people, not to exploit them, not to make profit. That means it deals more on making the people to be satisfied, meeting their basic necessities, not collecting from them, not making profit from them. So when you're asking an exam, an economic system that focuses more on the needs of the people rather than collecting profit from them is called what? A socialist what? Economy. And that is what? An advantage of a socialist what? Economy. So, number four, it prevents exploitation by private owners. Now, that's to say that in a socialist economy, consumers are not exploited. The people are not exploited. The societies are not exploited by private owners. Why? Because every means of production and distribution are controlled by what? The government. So the interference of the private individual is minimal or no. So the interference of the private individual, non-interference of the private individual, will not lead to exploitation of what? The consumers or the society. But that is a disadvantage of what? A capitalist economy. So in a capitalist economy, there's exploitation of what? The consumers. So the next one, it ensures equal distribution of wealth. This is also a jam question. Those are writing objective exam. This is an objective exam question. This is an objective exam question. So you may be asked, which economic system provides an equal distribution of wealth? Equal distribution of wealth. Equal distribution of wealth. It is what? A socialist what? Economy.